I am, of course, Christ I Am Disciple. You're watching my channel. And we're going to talk a little bit about how Zack Snyder's Justice League addresses depression and even addresses the issue of suicide prevention. And it's a big part of the movie. One of the characters in this movie is Cyborg, and he's dealing with tremendous depression. As you know, depression is the leading factor that determines whether somebody commits suicide or not. And so I'm going to discuss this a little bit with the movie, and also about us and ourselves and how we should really deal with this. It's a beautiful movie, I must admit. And it is, I think, the only superhero movie I have seen which has dealt with the subject matter. So we'll get into that. And there's a number of different things I want to talk about. So we'll get there. But the first thing we're going to start off with is a piece of scripture. I'm going to go from Matthew chapter 5. And I'm going to read verses 4 and verse 5. Okay? It goes like this. God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. God blesses those who are gentle and lowly, for the whole earth will belong to them. That's basically the scripture. And, you know, it takes being sometimes at your lowest to really get and understand that you need other people and you also need help. And so, you know, some of us, you know, we have a lot of, the ego is not necessarily a bad thing, but we have big egos, sometimes bigger than they should be. And sometimes these egos need to be put in check. Some of us have been born and our self-esteem has been extremely low almost the entirety of our lives because of the trauma that we came through, because of the people around us who told us we were nothing. And so there's those extremes. There's the people who they esteem themselves higher than they really are, and there are people who esteem themselves lower than they really are. In both cases, those are not good things. We have people who play God. There are people who are on power trips. We have people who don't think of themselves as not even in the least like God. They think of themselves less than themselves. They think of themselves in a very, very terrible way. They think of themselves as the enemy of themselves, and so want to purge themselves of themselves. So there's all of that going on. In this movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League, we meet egomaniacs in Lex Luthor, and we meet people who don't want to be there. They don't want to exist, like Cyborg. And Cyborg's story is literally the story of someone overcoming depression. It's an ongoing process, but in the process, this individual finds his place, his niche, by being around people who are supportive of him and do not see him as a Frankenstein, as some sort of monster. And so it's really fantastic going through this movie and following the heart of the movie, which is Cyborg's story, because Cyborg's story of overcoming depression is the story of just about everyone aspiring to overcome that dark place inside of them. And not just the dark place, but particularly depression. And we have a lot of depression in the world today by this generation. And mainly because a lot of things going on in the world today, and because we have access to so much information, a lot of things going on in the world today are extremely depressing. The news is very depressing. You know, the news reason what the media is doing with news is very depressing. It's always something negative. It's always something depressing, something that keep your state of the mind either fearful or it's disappointing. And that's sad. And people tend to, of course, generally they tend to focus on negative things. Anyway, so with that sort of environment, it is not surprising that a lot of the youth today are committing suicide. Suicide in the United States alone is one of the leading causes of death in the United States of America. Hundreds of thousands of people die on a minute-to-minute basis in the United States of America from suicide. It is one of the number one. It's one of the number. It's one of the top killers of people from the ages of 21 to 35, 39. So this message, and a lot of times people feel that by telling jokes and comedy, it can alleviate some of the stress for people, but the suicide rate is still very high. So I always believe that you shouldn't skirt around an issue or try to medicate it, but instead you should attack an issue head on. And I think this movie, Zack Snyder's Justice League, does justice to that by actually addressing this topic directly, having an individual in the movie who is suffering from depression, a sort of manic depression almost. And this person doesn't feel useful. This person doesn't see the abilities that they have as something that can help other people. No, this person sees themselves in an atrocious light. They don't want to exist. They're just moping in a room, hoping to die. And they hate the person who survived and even created them. So it's one of those situations where there's self-hate, and that self-hate is percolating outwards towards family members and lashing out at family members and people close to you. And so Cyborg's story is quite relatable to a lot of people who are disappointed with their lives or disappointed with how things have gone, or they are suffering from depression. Manic depression has been something from since their childhood. Sometimes these people have had some sort of traumatic experience in their childhood that changed and jarred the way how they see life. Some other people are predisposed towards depression because of their serious nature, how they take things, and how they see life. So Cyborg kind of encapsulates all these people. And the thing about Cyborg is Cyborg not only deals with the mentally ill or the mentally disabled individual, but he also, in a way, people who have physical disabilities can identify with Cyborg as well. So there's this two, the double-edged sword. It knocks out two things in one blow. And whereas, typically people think of, characters overcoming and being triumphant with no obstacles. Cyborg had to go through even more devastating things as he was starting to mend up with his dad. His father was taken from him. So and that is just, and Cyborg's probably 20, 21, 22 years of age. He's a young adult. And all of these traumatic experiences have happened to him. He was always estranged to his father. He's now starting to form a bond, and then boom, everything comes to an end. And this story is interesting because the difference, why Cyborg was able to not be a morose character or not be somebody who was suicidal or not turn to the dark side and start killing people and stuff, is because, one, yes, his father also put some things into him to give him some kind of hope, but he was around people who actually cared for him. They actually saw the use in him. They saw how he had a purpose, that he could have a purpose. And I believe these individuals, because they had similar losses, because they also suffered with depression, I think all of these individuals and how they tried to deal with the depression was a commonality that allowed all of them to coalesce together. I was listening to Chris Terrio talk about how one of the intentional and purposeful messages in Zack Snyder's Justice League was that all of these people came from broken paths. All of these people lost somebody. They suffered loss, great loss. And Terrio went into a certain part of himself where he had also suffered losses. And he was able to take those feelings and so on and write on this story and create the story that we got, and through his life experiences, etc. And he was hoping that it would appeal to people on that level, because as Ben Affleck was saying, it's not about trying to be didactic and get in the forefront and beat people over the head with woke values and stuff like that. It's not trying to be political. It's not trying to beat you over the head, hammer you these things over the head. No, they're hoping that the experiences of these characters in this movie would resonate with people who have had similar experiences, and so give them some sort of idea that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that there is hope, that they could see, if this character could make it through this, then maybe I can. So sort of like showing you how the infrastructure was put in place for a character to overcome depression to some degree, for the character to be able to deal with a situation where they felt they were useful in life, and because they were useful and because they had a sense of belonging, to be able now to actually impact the world. Of course, Cyborg's still going to have his issues as he continues on as a superhero, but what's beautiful is how he embraced the loss. He embraced his parents. He embraced who he was. And that embracing of yourself, not fighting against yourself, because suicide and depression, always you're pitting yourself against yourself. And you're actually trying to kill yourself. And me being someone who also kind of survived suicide, and I had lots of suicidal thoughts at a certain point in my life, given certain situations that were presented, I can definitely identify with that. I can vibe with that. And I can understand why certain people really love this movie and also love what Zack Snyder brought with BVS, etc. Because these are movies that earn it. You know, they carry you through a journey, and they propose a possible solution to your journey, a possibility that things can get better and things can actually work out for an individual. And even if they don't, it's worth it to stick with it and just go through the entire journey. This is the beauty of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I think that coupling that with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, coupling that with, Zack sort of channeling us towards doing good instead of, just arguing with people online and trying to validate our choice of movie. Because that's sort of entitlement. You feel entitled. Oh, you should like this movie. No, you don't have to like the movie. But at least the one thing we could do is show you. And I think what we do less of sometimes with people who we antagonize or they antagonize us is we don't show people what it is that we're saying. And I think when you show people, the more you show people and the more you don't get into arguments and disputes that are pointless. If somebody feels that this will not work or it will not happen, that's okay. That's them. I mean, that's a point of view. I don't have to live in that. I think the more we show people what it is we're talking about, produce, I think is the better things will be. I think we should show people what Zack Snyder's Justice League really is. It's really a special movie. It's not like those other comic book movies. I don't know of any comic book movie where they addressed suicide prevention, where they addressed in a serious way depression. You don't really see that much in movies. There's a moment of depression. There's a moment, a low spot in the hero's life, but he gets back up, picks up his boots, keeps on going, and he succeeds. But in these movies, the heroes are actually failing a number of times. Every time they try to attempt to do something, they fail. But of course, they don't give up. But collectively, what helps them to move forward and to really be productive and to actually make an impact is the fact that they are in strengthening each other as they keep on going on. It's not a conflict between each other like in the Avengers or in some other movie. It's not an ego clash. They're all working together with each other earnestly and sincerely, and that's what produces the outcome. They're able to help each other and heal each other in the process of that journey. And I think that is what a lot of times people who suffer from depression, who end up committing suicide, usually it's because they don't feel that support is there. They don't, even though maybe for certain moments they believe it, and then they lose it again and they can't believe it because the world is so the unknown is so scary. The world is so dangerous, and maybe it's what you're feeding yourself on. Maybe it's the stress of a conflict of some kind. And some people can't handle that. Some people put the blame upon themselves for everything that's happening. So there's so many different things why people may be predisposed towards committing suicide. And I just really think that this movie, is one of those things that can help people tip the table away from committing suicide, away from, those thoughts and feelings and emotions that may come across someone's mind to sort of tilt them towards wanting to do something like that, because it is a serious issue now. A lot of more people are committing suicide than before. It has risen by 30%, I believe it is, and a lot of them are the younger people. And it's because sometimes they can't see, because the unknown, you can't see to know what can transpire, and some people are afraid of that. They're afraid the situation will get only worse and worse and worse and worse, and they try to take control of it by taking their lives. It's a very sad thing. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I think that Zack Snyder's Justice League. I really hope that November the 17th, which was the inauguration of the first Justice League iteration of the Justice League in a long time. We had Super Friends, and then we had this Justice League movie that came out in 2004. Not a movie, an animated series, and it began on November 17th. I really hope that they will put Zack Snyder's Justice League into theaters because of this, because I really truly believe it can do a load of good for a lot of people. Now, maybe I've been pushing this, and I know that different people know that I push this now. I may have been pushing this for a while, but I want to say that regardless of what the outcome is, and regardless of what anybody says, I want to tell people this particular movie, Zack Snyder Justice, which did not get its debut in IMAX globally, right? It never got its shot globally to show in all its glory and splendor what it was supposed to be. I want to say that this movie will do some good, regardless of whether it goes into theaters or not. It will do some good, and we'll ensure of that, because it has a sound message, and it even has the American Foundation for Suicide and Prevention banner in it. And I do think this is one of several things that I think makes this movie the best comic book movie of all time, in my opinion, because it translates into real world situations and real world solutions. And I just hope that it will provide some hope and inspire people to want to be better people with each other, instead of arguing on Twitter all the time. So that's what I got. Yes, I still advocate that James Gunn should be fired. Yes, I still advocate that Jeff Johns should be fired from Warner Brothers Pictures. I'm not going to change my mind on that. But what I will say is that I do believe that Warner Brothers can do those kinds of movies that they want to get the kid demographic, whatever. They can do it, but it's just you have to go about it right. That's all I'm saying. Can it be done? Absolutely. There are many different ways to storytell, but you have to build it on the right foundation. If I was them and I want my DC brand to pick up, I would put Zack Snyder Justice League into theaters this year, because Aquaman's going to suffer. Zack Snyder Justice League goes into theaters this year and it does well. I mean, I would say to Warner Brother Pictures that whatever the original vision was that James Wan had for Aquaman, if it's been shot, you guys should revert to that. And if it's shot and post is done on it and everything, that's the movie you should go with. Because I truly believe that is the organic, pure movie you should be doing. You shouldn't be doing anything that has to do with James Gunn, none of that stuff. Just do the Aquaman movie James Wan originally wanted to do. And then just stick with that. And leave it alone. And I'm sure that movie would make money. I'm pretty sure it would, because that's the director's vision for the movie. So, and that's the bottom line with Hollywood and with these movies is you have to be able to understand. If you don't have a singular vision and a clear vision for a movie, and you keep on changing it up, that's where you hurt the movie. You hurt the movie that way. I want to say another thing. Hollywood right now is in a strike. I support that strike 100%. There are certain independent films which have gotten SAG-AFTRA permission to be played in cinemas later on this year. I want to say that, and the actors are allowed to promote the films and stuff. I guess because these independent bodies agreed to the terms that SAG-AFTRA have. I want to say to these independent bodies and more independent film production companies, which will be, they're kind of on the rise. They're starting to get some prominence, especially with Sound of Freedom, etc. I want to say take this opportunity to optimize as much as you can. I support the strike. I support the guild. I support the actors. I support the writers. And now I also support the VFX people because I do believe that Hollywood's been exploiting the talent for far too long. The talent is not getting what they're supposed to get, a just due. And so as a result, these big companies are making mad amounts of money. These executives who have done absolutely nothing and have nothing to do with filmmakers get extraordinary amounts of money to entertain people where the quality of entertainment is not up to par with what it should be. And you keep on trying to slap people over the head with these woke agendas, and it just does not ricochet very well. And people are not just going to laugh at any old thing anymore. They're not going to be laughing at themselves and laughing at situations. That is not the way to solve problems. While laughing at yourself is sometimes a good thing, because then you don't take life too seriously. Sometimes you need to let it go so you can de-stretch a bit. Life is a serious thing, though, at the same time. So that's what I got for you guys. Again, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. And I wish you guys a blessed day. Peace.